My name is Anne. I'm 31 years old and currently a financial advisor at an investment firm in Seattle. I don't like showing off, I hate waste, and I absolutely never live beyond my means. My coworkers like to joke that I'm the woman who lives inside a spreadsheet, but I don't mind, because I know that every dollar I save today is the foundation of the freedom I'll have tomorrow. I'm the youngest of two sisters. My older sister, Vanessa, is 4 years older than me. If my childhood was like blank pages tucked away in a corner drawer, hers was a glossy comic book displayed right in the middle of the living room. Bright, celebrated, and constantly cherished, Vanessa was always the center of attention. Golden hair, a dazzling smile, and a voice that could stop a room mid-conversation. My parents never admitted it, but the favoritism was always there, like a glossy coat over every decision made in our house. From the first bike, the overseas trip, to a high school graduation party that looked like a full-blown banquet, everything was for Vanessa. Me? A quiet dinner with a, well, as long as you pass, kind of toast, was considered enough. Vanessa got married early, just a year after graduating college. Her husband, Nathan, is a civil engineer in construction. They have 2 kids, Ellie, who's 8, and Brandon, who's 5. Their small family currently lives in a 2-bedroom apartment downtown, where the sounds of traffic and complaints about rent rise like background noise every week. At family gatherings, Vanessa often complains that she's exhausted from juggling everything, that the kids don't have enough space to grow, and that Seattle is slowly swallowing their whole life. I never compare, but sometimes the contrast is just too stark to ignore. While they struggle with rising expenses, I, even living modestly, maintain a stable and peaceful life. I rent a small apartment in the suburbs, owned by the parents of Jenny, my best friend from college. They rent it to me for half the market rate because they trust me, and I've never let them down. I spend most of my time at home. Working remotely became a routine after the pandemic. I love the quiet feeling of sitting in front of my laptop, with a bookshelf of finance books behind me, a warm cup of tea to my right, and a window view of trees shifting with the seasons. I don't need much. I dream of a small house with a garden, where I can grow herbs, listen to birds in the morning, and maybe bake on weekends. I spent nearly 7 years saving for that dream. No eating out more than 3 times a month, no shopping unless it's on the need list, no credit card debt, no buying a new car if the old one still works. I turned down fancy vacations for hiking trips through the Olympic Mountains. People call me an extreme minimalist, but I call it the freedom to choose. I've never blamed my parents for favoring Vanessa, but I learned early on that if I didn't plan my life, no one else would. And that's exactly why, when the dream of my own home started to feel within reach, I never expected the storm that followed. The one named my family. Last week, after reviewing the balances in my 3 savings accounts, housing, investment, and emergency, I knew I was ready. Not maybe another year would be better ready, but truly ready. Enough for a down payment, enough for the fees, and enough to cover the mortgage for years to come without sacrificing my way of living. That evening, I went to my parents' house for dinner as usual. A Sunday gathering with barbecue, garlic bread, and conversations that usually revolved around the kids' school, gas prices, or the latest issue Vanessa had with her washing machine. I wasn't planning to say anything. The plan was to stay quiet, finalize everything, and then share. But as I scrolled through property listings while waiting for dessert, an image popped up. A little wooden house with a wide porch and a sun-drenched garden. And I couldn't help but smile. "What's making you smile like that?" Vanessa asked, setting her orange juice down. I looked up, hesitated, then decided to be honest. "I'm house hunting, planning to buy next month." Silence, as if I'd just admitted I had a secret life in Alaska. My mom set her fork down with deliberate sound. "Buying a house? By yourself?" "Yes. I've been planning this for a long time. I want somewhere peaceful, close to nature. Not too far from the city, but away from all the honking and traffic." My dad raised an eyebrow. Vanessa stared at me like I'd just announced I was buying a spaceship. "Anne, my mom said, in that voice that sounded like concern but felt like a command. You can't just think about yourself like this. Buying a house is a big deal. You should have at least talked to us first. I kept calm. Mom, I've been saving for 7 years. It's my money. I didn't borrow from anyone. I'm not in debt. Vanessa jumped in, her voice a bit louder than usual. I'm not saying you can't buy a house, but you need to think ahead. A house should have space for others, not just for living alone forever. And who exactly are the others here? I asked, half joking. No one answered, but the exchanged glances between my mom and Vanessa made me uneasy. The next night, as I was preparing financial documents for the mortgage application, I got a text from my mom. I just spoke with Ms. Karen at church. There's a beautiful house in Cedar Ridge, 4 bedrooms, 3 baths, big backyard for the kids to run around. I'll send you the link. Then came a flood of messages from Vanessa. You have to check this one out. Great school district, supermarket nearby, even has a home office. If you get that place, we could visit more often. I looked at the giant living room, the hotel-like kitchen with 2 refrigerators, and sighed. Thanks, but I'm looking for something smaller and quieter. Vanessa replied with just one word. Why? I didn't respond. 3 days later, during lunch break, my mom called, excitement in her voice. Sweetie, I just saw the house on Maple Street. The owners are moving soon, they're slashing the price. The master has a balcony and 2 small bedrooms perfect for kids. You've got to see it. I closed my eyes for a second and replied as gently as I could. Mom, I really don't need that much space. I don't have kids, and I'm not planning to have anyone move in. One day you'll want to, she argued. And even if not, Vanessa and the kids could come stay on weekends. They need the space, Anne. Their apartment is way too cramped. That's when it hit me. The pieces fell into place. The hints, the exchanged looks at dinner, the family-friendly listings. None of it was random. They didn't just want me to buy a house. They wanted me to buy one for them. And I knew if I stayed silent, if I went along just to avoid upsetting anyone, I'd be giving up the most precious thing I'd built my entire adult life, a life that was truly mine. I signed the contract for my dream home on a bright April morning. A 2-bedroom wooden house nestled among the pine trees north of Everett, about a 45-minute drive from downtown Seattle. A spacious backyard, a small greenhouse, and raised garden beds already in place. As I stepped onto the porch and took the keys from the former owner, I almost cried. Not out of sentiment, but because for the first time, I was choosing my life. No interference, no director. I kept it secret that whole week, planning to share it at Saturday dinner at my parents' as a happy surprise. I imagined a proud smile from Dad, a teary hug from Mom. But when I said the words, I bought a house, the entire room fell still. Vanessa stiffly set her glass down, eyes fixed on me. You bought it? You mean, you already signed everything? I nodded, giving a soft smile. Yes. Last week. I'm moving in at the end of the month. My mom sat up straight, placing her hand on her chest like she'd just heard something earth-shattering. And how could you make that decision on your own? You know we've been house hunting for you. I frowned, a cold shiver running down my spine. What do you mean? Who exactly? Vanessa looked up, expressionless. Nathan and me, we've thought this through. The house Mom picked is near the best elementary school in the area. Ellie and Brandon would each have their own room. You don't need that much space. It's perfect. I laughed silently. Wait, you're all talking about that house? As if I'd buy it so your entire family could move in? My dad calmly set down his fork, his voice low and firm. Anne, you're the only one in the family who's financially stable right now. Helping each other is what family does. I turned to my mom. You feel the same? Her eyes didn't deny it. You live alone, work from home, have a steady income. Vanessa's struggling in that tiny apartment. The kids don't have space. If you care about your sister, then I should give up my dream to support someone else's life? I cut in, my voice raspy. No one answered. Nathan, who had been silent the entire dinner, sniffed slightly like he had been dragged into this unwillingly. I can fix up the place, Anne. If it's that 4-bedroom house, I could turn it into an ideal setup. No charge. I turned to Vanessa. You know what? I actually thought you'd at least ask me, not assume, not make plans behind my back. I didn't think I needed to, Vanessa shrugged. You're my sister. You're more than capable. I'm stuck. You have the kind of stability I've never had. I pushed my chair back and stood up. None of you ever asked what I wanted, and now that I finally have something I spent a decade building, you're staring me down like I'm selfish for not handing it over to the family. You're betraying us, Anne, my mom said, her voice sharp as a blade. Barbara on Maple Street was willing to lower the price. Big house, safe neighborhood. Everyone's been planning for weeks. Just waiting on your yes. I stood still for a long moment, looking around the table. Blame in one face, expectation in another, quiet disappointment in the rest. No one had asked, Anne, are you happy? What do you want? I didn't buy a house to make room for someone else, I said slowly. I bought it because I wanted a home for myself, a life I chose, and you were all wrong to think you could just claim that without even asking. I grabbed my purse and headed for the door. Behind me, Vanessa blurted, You're tearing this family apart over a house? I stopped, my hand on the doorknob. It's not about a house. It's about finally being old enough to know who's living my life and who shouldn't be. I opened the door and stepped outside without looking back. The air was crisp, but I felt warmer than I had in years, because for the first time, I wasn't asking for permission to be myself. I got back to my old apartment feeling dazed, like I'd just walked out of a battle. The door shut behind me with a dry thud, sealing me off from the arguing, the accusatory stares, and the quiet disappointment clinging to every glance at that dinner table. I dropped my bag on the floor and didn't bother turning on the lights. In the blurry darkness, I stood motionless, my chest hollow, like everything had collapsed with no warning. My phone started vibrating less than 30 minutes later. First, it was my mom. 3 missed calls in a row, then a nearly half-page message. You need to come to your senses. Family is family. This isn't a game. Don't let your pride ruin everything. Then my dad. Call me. Now. I set the phone on the table without replying. The screen kept lighting up like a constant reminder that I had disrupted their version of normal. But really, what was normal? Me always being the backup plan for someone else's life? I turned on the light. The warm yellow glow filled the small, tidy apartment I'd lived in for over 6 years. The affordable place offered through the kindness of my best friend's parents. I used to see it as a refuge. Now, it felt like a waiting room before the next chapter. The phone wouldn't stop. Now it was a text from Vanessa. Are you really this heartless? My kids didn't do anything wrong. I thought you understood. Turns out you only live for yourself. I leaned back in my chair, a quiet anger rising in me. They called me selfish. They said buying a small home, with my own effort and discipline, was a betrayal. But in all those years, had anyone ever asked what I wanted? Had anyone ever paused long enough to see how I'd lived or what I'd sacrificed? At 11, Vanessa got sent to jazz dance classes. I got enrolled in evening math tutoring because you're good at it, don't fall behind. At 17, Vanessa got a brand new Jeep for college. I got Dad's old Civic with a pat on the back and a "it still runs, don't be picky." At 20, she studied out of state, fully funded by our parents. I worked 30 hours a week just to afford community college. And now, when I've finally built something for myself, they see it as something they can just take to help the one they've always favored. The screen lit up again, this time from Aunt Cynthia, my mom's sister. Anne, I heard what happened. Your mom is heartbroken. Don't destroy your family over a moment of rebellion. Then from Aunt Helen. You know, when you were little, your mom always said you were the most stubborn. but being too stubborn only makes you lonely. I started feeling suffocated. Loneliness wasn't half as terrifying as being surrounded by people who thought they had the right to dictate your life. I turned off my phone. For the first time in years, I knew I needed a night where no one could reach me. No familiar voices, no silent accusations, no guilt quietly planted in every word. The next morning, I got up early, brewed coffee, and watched the sunlight stream through the window. The decision was clear. I would move into my new home within 2 weeks. I wouldn't share the address with anyone except my lawyer, the moving company, and the 3 closest friends who had never judged, only listened and supported. I scheduled the internet transfer, paid the moving team's deposit, and I set daily reminders to pack one item, one book, one small dream I'd once tucked into a drawer at a time. That evening, I got an anonymous email titled, "Families Shouldn't Be Abandoned Over Money." I didn't need to read it to know who wrote it. I just opened my laptop and replied, "It's not about money. It's about not making space in my life for people who don't respect boundaries." I hit send and closed my computer. That night, I slept better than I had in a year. I moved on a cool Monday morning. The moving truck arrived on time, as professional as the reviews had said. I'd picked a weekday on purpose. Everyone in the family would be busy with work or the kids' schedules. No one would have time to follow. Even though I had changed my phone number, deleted my social media, and redirected all mail to the new place, I still felt the need for absolute silence. I wasn't afraid they'd come looking. I just didn't want any of them in my space anymore. The small house on the tree-lined street in the town of Monroe, about an hour from Seattle, was the first place I ever walked into and felt a deep sigh of relief. No one asking who I planned to move in, no one checking if the living room was big enough for family parties. Just the sound of wind through the maple trees, sunlight falling across the hardwood floor, and the warm scent of pine in every breath. I spent the first week unpacking, cleaning, and arranging things exactly how I wanted. No one stopped me from painting the office olive green. No one told me not to waste money on a tomato trellis in the backyard. And for the first time, I bought myself a patio set just for morning tea. No excuse of "for guests." I joined a local gardening club just days after moving in. The first meetup was at Grace's house, a kind woman in her 50s with a blooming lavender garden and a gentle smile. No one asked where I came from. They only cared what I was growing, whether I'd pruned roses before, and if I was interested in swapping seeds. I also met Liam, a man about my age who works as a freelance landscape designer. He came to help me fix the irrigation system and trim back the branches that were blocking sunlight from my herb trellis. We didn't talk much about family, and that, strangely, felt like a relief. Amid conversations about soil, sunlight, and how to keep rabbits away, I found myself slowly opening up again, naturally, without pressure. Work was going better than ever. Remote work, free from stressful messages or passive-aggressive remarks, allowed me to focus and be more creative. A project I pitched to a major client got approved in just 1 week, something that had never happened before. My direct manager, Karen, called to congratulate me and told me I'd be getting a raise, along with a request to help train new hires. For the first time, I was being recognized not just for doing well, but for being me. Every Saturday, I rode my bike to the farmer's market downtown, picked out fresh vegetables, and chatted with familiar vendors. One time, I helped a little girl pick the right kind of onion her mom had written on a grocery list. Later, her mom invited me to join a local book club at the library. I said yes, why not? No one there knew I'd once been called a traitor for not letting my sister move into my home. They just knew me as Anne, the woman with thriving basil and surprisingly refined taste in books. Sometimes, I still glimpsed photos of Vanessa or my mom through the social media of old friends. Vague captions about selfish family members or pictures of the kids squeezed into a tiny room with